natural processes look like. In nature, everything balances itself out. Like you've got raptors that take care of rodents, that take care of insects, that take care of bacteria and process nutrients in the soil and give.
This is our tomato house. Right now I think we're growing 7 different varieties of tomatoes. I like to grow the cherry tomatoes in the middle 3 rows because the end walls are a lot lower than the center, and so I grow my heirloom tomatoes on the side because the plants are never quite as vigorous. They also don't produce quite as long as cherry tomatoes, and the central 3 trellising systems are much easier for us to do our lower and lean trellising system. This tomato is a Sungold tomato. It's like the motherfucking best tomato in the world. The tomato that made me want to farm. It is a hybrid tomato that is just like selected for like taste and color and vigorous plants. It like produces all year and high quality all year, and people love it. So you can see here in our trellising system, we've also intercropped some basil in here, that it makes incredibly long clusters of tomatoes. And this is our first harvest, so we're gonna do that. I started harvesting a bit earlier. You can see another variety in here too. The red ones are sweetie. This one's exciting. This one's called Sunrise Bumblebee, and it's gonna be kind of like a tricolor. And then we've got our Sungolds here. This is a perfect example of a Sungold, like super opaque orange throughout, with a nice green calyx on top. If we come up here and look at the flower, you can kind of think about the growth cycle. The flower has these yellow petals, which attract the bumblebees. Behind it is the green calyx, or in this case, the sepals. At this stage of life, it's called the sepal. And then as the flowers are pollinated, then they'll become fruits. And then the sepal grows and becomes the calyx. So a tomato plant, these are indeterminate tomatoes. Indeterminate tomatoes will grow without imperfect conditions. Indeterminate tomatoes will grow for 13 months until their life cycle is over. They've done this in Canada in peafowls. Like in northern Canada, they don't have enough light to grow tomatoes anyway, so they make a tomato house and keep it at perfect conditions for a year, and the tomatoes will keep growing. So indeterminate plants will ripen all year and continue to grow, but determinate plants, they have a determined stopping point and will grow in a determinate amount of fruits, and they all ripen at the same time. I want to harvest these. Give me a second. So with the indeterminate plants, they will ripen from the bottom up. And so if you look up there, you'll see there's no ripe tomatoes, and all of our ripe tomatoes start here. So they ripen from the bottom up, but within the cluster, they ripen from the top down. And you kind of saw that when we looked up there, because the last flower in the cluster is still a flower, whereas the top ones are fruit. And that kind of makes sense too, because you think about the way that the plant grows. The plant is growing from the ground up, so all the tomatoes on the bottom. But then when the cluster grows, it's growing from the plant out. And so it makes sense that it would ripen closer to the plant. That's where the most of the energy is. So if I look at this plant and this one is not harvestable, I kind of ignore the rest because there's just no point. So I'll look for one that is harvestable, and I see a few in here. These ones have some damage on them, so I won't put them in my bin, but this is a good color. I think this is be a better angle in here. All right, here's a great example. So I like to, when we harvest, I like to keep our calyxes on. The calyx, that green stem part, that is a lot. It just means the tomatoes are going to last longer. Like any time you remove part or put a cut into something or open a wound on a plant, the chance that it's going to rot or get disease just go up. So leaving the cowlex on and making a less invasive cut will just make them last longer. So I'm going to be really gentle with these tomatoes and put my thumb right here on this joint. I don't remember what the joint is called. And then I'm going to push up with my finger. When I was taught that this is called a kneecap, and all we want to do is break the kneecaps. And that may not be your type of analogy, but it stuck with me because it helps me to remember how to harvest. And what's really cool is I was harvesting strawberries this year and realized that strawberries have a kneecap too. And so I know that it's like a portion of the plant. I just can't remember what it's called right now. But my guess is like it's an evolutionary adaptive advantage, and that like seeds were spread more easily if the tomato, when ripe, simply popped off the plant. And I think that's cool.